podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro, coming to you to talk about Norwich or not. We have gotten the news this morning that Jurgen Klopp will leave the club at the end of the season. This was to be the Norwich pod. You'll excuse us if Norwich don't even get a mention other than me mentioning them now. I'm joined by Karl and Guy Drinkle to talk about Jurgen and to talk about the bigger picture. So, Karl, you're in a newsroom this morning and this drops. What is the reaction for yourself and what's the reaction around you? Because I'm always fascinated.
Well, I'm not on holiday anymore, Dave. That's the first thing to note. The only thing that I could compare the mechanisms, let's say, of being at work and the reaction on what everybody has to do and everything sort of going on all at the same time and trying to get quite a lot of things out at once that I can compare it to would be, remember the first day the Super League broke? The news about the European Super League, and like they announced it and they got that really shit GeoCities website up live, and then there was the protests and the initial reaction, and then people were on the streets and all that kind of stuff. That's the only thing I can say is comparable in terms of work furor, let's say. Obviously that was a football wide thing. Obviously it involved people across different nations and all the rest of it, but in terms of immediate workload and immediate response and how surprising it all was, that's the only real recent thing that I can think is kind of comparable to it. I mean, my surprise, honestly, I thought someone was taking the piss because they would just happen to be on Twitter at that exact moment when it scrolled past, like within seconds of it being there, and then just said, "Oh, Klopp's leaving." Obviously, I just thought that they were just, trying to annoy me or having a laugh because of the particular person's tweet that they read, where we'd just been talking about them a moment earlier, and obviously then it snowballed from there, and you have like about 10 seconds basically to realise that it's not a joke or a fake account or anything like that. Basically get into action and plan the response. So from a work perspective, it's an immediate breaking news article, obviously, which is fairly short and to the point, just the facts of the matter in the headline. It's a relatively quick piece, which is live, and then that frames basically the foundation of everything else that happens. It's not usual, obviously, in football that we have a manager announce their departure this way, and with so much prepared for it in terms of, like, there was a big video, there was lots of content within that video, there was extra information about them, the coaches obviously was included, and Klopp talking about like his health and all of that. So there were several, let's say, reactionary pieces after that. So one of Jurgen Klopp explaining his reasoning. Obviously, there was one very, very quickly about potential candidates, which is something we do for every club, but is more notable when it's a big club, obviously, because there are a few managers to choose from. Usually people after the initial news just want to know what's next. So most of the focus then is on, when could his last games be, who it is, could it be against? In this case for Liverpool, we're obviously en route for several cup finals at the moment, the way things are going. So then there are the more longer sort of feature or opinion pieces. So I think we've got a legacy one going up just as we're recording this. There'll be another Premier League wide focus on, like, what's it going to mean for the wider scope of the Premier League. I have a feeling that it's something that the rest of the Premier League, the non-Liverpool and Man City supporting contingent of the Premier League, are very quickly going to realise what we've been talking about. Like, this would have been an absolute bore fest for the last 6-7 years, if not for Liverpool. We know that. Man City fans probably know it more or less, but the rest of the Premier League kind of I still feel have taken it for granted a little bit how hard Liverpool have pushed Man City. If we don't get everything absolutely spot on with the transition, then that's kind of what people are going to recognise next. So I think we've got a piece going up of that, and then over the next couple of days and past the Norwich match of the weekend, obviously there will be quotes and reaction pieces from managers who come into contact with Liverpool, former players obviously doing so today, all that kind of stuff. So it is a very, very quick moving process in terms of the newsroom. And after the actual initial breaking news piece, which is just facts, then most of the rest of the stuff is forward looking with, the odd memorable piece along the way. I'm sure there will be lots today about, Klopp's best moments or what Klopp changed in the Premier League or how he made Liverpool great again, all that kind of stuff. That comes as follow-up pieces later on.
What's your gut feeling right now? Like, what are you feeling at the moment? Because I've seen a lot of people on social media who have basically descended into complete meltdown over this, and it's understandable. I mean, it's a gut punch without question.
It is understandable. Go on.
He said that he told the owners in November, Karl. Why are we finding out now? Why has it been announced now? Do you think this was going to break through somebody else and the club decided to get out ahead of it?
I don't honestly know, because there have been a few moments even recently when we could have done it. Like the week break that we had, for example, you would have thought if it was planned in November to, let's say, during January, or the week that we have off, or 11 days or whatever it was, that's probably the time to do it, isn't it? If you'd have already decided we'll do it then. So I think that the reasons for it are, potentially down to like 3 or 4. One is obviously what you've just said, that someone else was going to break it, or they thought that they might leak it. Maybe they had to at some point obviously record this video. So, it's a number of club staff who have to be involved below senior level. And after that point, it's kind of got to be, within the next couple of hours that gets released kind of thing. Otherwise, everybody knows already. The other is that obviously there are further announcements to make. That literally just before we've come on to record, we've got the news that Schmadtke is leaving as well. I mean, we never actually got the news that Schmadtke was staying in the end, so I'm not really sure that that's relevant, but it is notable that we're finally saying, right, this is a complete clean sweep. So it's potential that there's another announcement to be made fairly soon in terms of whether that's incoming or club structure or whatever else it is. There's got to be something that moves on. The club have another reason why they might change things up, and therefore you have to say this is happening now. The other one, obviously, is that it could be Jurgen's decision. He could have just decided after the game the other day, this is the time, like, I want people to know now, or I want to tell my players now, or whatever it is. It could be that there is some transfer discussion ongoing and that they're asking, how is Klopp going to use me next year? And we can't sign this player until basically they know. So therefore we have to tell the rest of the world, because then otherwise that player or that agent or whatever it is going to also be able to sort of leak the news as such. So there are a few reasons, maybe something outside.
Well, there are apparently contract negotiations going on now, aren't there?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There's contract negotiations apparently with Trent, with Mo, and with a couple of others. So maybe in light of those, that's why this has to come out now, because those agents will have to be told, look, it won't be Jurgen next season. The player's signing on to play for somebody else. Guy, bringing you in here. What's your reaction, bud?
I feel ill. Cried a little bit. Won't lie. I've not really experienced anything like this. I'm sure you would have had Kenny, wouldn't you, when you were younger? Rafa was a bit different from everyone because the club was in such a shit state. And I was 16 when he left. And we obviously had that season where we tried to replace Xavi and finished 7th or whatever it was. So it wasn't exactly the saddest. And there was a mix of whether it was his time and stuff like that. You don't get that with this Jurgen Klopp news. I don't think anyone other than Jurgen thought it was the right time for him to leave, which is not understandable. We don't know how fatigued he is or whatever. But I've not really experienced anything like this. This is probably only something a United fan could compare to when Fergie left, because the other great managers, I mean, Mourinho's been sacked twice. Wenger, of course. Wenger's the other one, obviously. But again,
but Arsenal fans
they were hounding him
turning
out.
against Wenger.
Yeah.
So it's not the same.
Yeah, Fergie's the only one who's comparable because it's leaving on hopefully a positive footing. I mean, even if we don't win the league or Champions League, if we finish second with 2 domestic cups again, it's still going to be on a positive foot. It's just the shock of it because I've never experienced anything like this. I've never had a manager like this. It's like I love Rafa, but it just wasn't this. But no, I felt like you mentioned gut punch, like ill, because I was walking the dog when the news broke, and I was like,
"Same.
Is that a fake Paul Joyce account?" Oh, fucking hell! It's the first time I've always wanted that extra underscore next to a Paul Joyce, and it wasn't there.
Or an extra squiggle in the profile picture,
a 0 rather than the O.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I was walking the dogs as well, and I was away up the lane, and there's no real phone reception up there. Like, you'll get bits and pieces. So I saw the notification pop up, and it was just breaking bombshell Liverpool news, and it said Jurgen Klopp, and I couldn't open Twitter to see what it was. So I'm rushing the dogs back down the lane. And Eddie's trying to ring me at the same time, and I can't answer because there's just no reception. So I'm not going to be able to hear anything he has to say. And I get a bit closer to the house and I open it, and it's that. But by which time our group chat has already kicked off. And for whatever reason, WhatsApp is easier to open and get because obviously it uses less data or whatever.
Magic face.
So I'd seen it more in WhatsApp before I'd seen it on Twitter. And then obviously the video comes out, which I was home by then. And then it is just that kind of, wow, that's not how I was expecting today to start sort of feeling. But as Karl said, like, we get the news that Jurgen's going, then it's Linders is leaving, Growitz is leaving, and Matos are leaving. So all his staff are going with him, which makes sense. You want a clean slate. You want to bring in a new manager. He's going to want to bring in his staff. And then, obviously, it comes out Jörg Schmatke is leaving. And I do wonder as well, like, just with the timing, maybe they already have the person lined up. Maybe they have the people lined up. Maybe they know exactly what direction they're going in. And that's why it's come out now that they've sort of landed on who they're going to look to bring in, or who they've already maybe got an agreement with. We'll circle back to that. Karl, favorite Jurgen Klopp moment off the top of your head in the near 9 years since he's been here? Let's go positive with this.
Barcelona.
Let's talk about the great things. Barcelona at home,
Easy.
The 4-0.
Yep.
Everything
about that game. Everything about that game. The fact that we spoke about it in such detail beforehand and basically nailed a bunch of stuff that happened in the game that we knew would happen because we'd seen it in the first leg and people were overlooking that just in favour of the scoreline itself. The fact that it played out near perfect for us, the fact that there were near misses, the fact that basically every Liverpool fan knew that we could do it and actually thought that we can do it despite it being a ridiculous scoreline. The fact of how the goals went in and who scored some of those goals. And obviously the fact, is, big Champions League game to go to the final and all that sort of stuff. Everything about that game was probably encapsulated the perfection of Klopp's Liverpool for me. Obviously, there are other games which actually saw us win trophies and all the rest of it, but that was the one for me which just put everything of the greatness and also the madness of what we're capable of doing late so many times in matches.
Jurgen, like you mentioned the City thing, right? So City are this juggernaut built on a foundation of cheating. You don't need to say that, I'll say it for you. And we're the only club that's been able to touch them over the last 7 years. The only club. Arsenal never even laid a glove on them last year. Arsenal did a load of dancing around, and then when it came time to throw hands, Arsenal fell over and City cruised to victory. We're the only team that have pushed them. We've beaten them to the title once. We've come within a point twice. Jurgen, prior to Liverpool, was at Dortmund, obviously going up against the Goliath that is Bayern Munich. Jurgen is that incredible underdog who outperforms expectation. And that Barcelona game was everything Klopp. The intensity, the pressing, the desire, the never say die attitude. The fact that we went into that game against a team with Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, and all the rest of the star names. And we went into that game without Mohamed Salah, without Bobby Firmino. Two of our best players, two of our most important attackers. In Mo, our most important attacker. We went in 3-0 down, and yet we still found a way to score 4 goals. And we got those 4 goals from Divock Origi, who 12 months previously had been written off by everybody, and by Gini Wijnaldum. Like, Gini Wijnaldum scoring 2 goals in a Champions League semi-final
off the bench,
when Gini has sacrificed off the bench, coming off the bench. Andy Robertson having to go off at half-time injured, another massive player for us, going off injured. James Milner going to left-back to mark Lionel Messi. And Gini Wijnaldum, who had sacrificed all of his attacking intentions since joining the club, had completely altered his game and had the moronic part of the fan base asking, well, what does he actually do? Coming up with 2 goals, but nothing will ever encapsulate that night more than corner taken quickly, the Divock finish, and Divock not really knowing what to do and running in a big weird circle before realizing I've just scored the winner. It's mania, it's manic, it's incredible. You can watch that game over and over and over again. You know the outcome, you know the key moments, and you're still filled with this range of emotion, this excitement, this joy, this fury at the Fabinho yellow card, which to this day pisses me off. That game is just incredible. And I said this on the Daily Red. We should just be thankful. Like, we shouldn't be... Yes, obviously, it's hard to say goodbye to somebody like Jurgen. I think Harinder said it in the AEye group chat. It feels like we're losing a very dear friend. Because that's what Jurgen has connected with us all at that level. He's not... Rafa, we loved as a manager. Houllier, we loved as a manager. Jurgen, we love as a man. And I know a lot of people who got to know Rafa personally love him as a man. But from the outside, Rafa could often come across as a little bit cold. And he's talked about that before. It's how he processes. Jurgen is like your uncle that you see once every 6 months. He's your favourite uncle and you always go for a couple of pints with him. And you have the best crack. And he's just the best guy in the world. That's what it feels like. But that saying, don't be sad it's ending, be happy that it happened. That's what strikes me now. Like, we've had 9 years, nearly 9 years of this guy. He was at Mainz for 7 years. He was at Dortmund for 7 years. He's the type of manager who gives everything all the time. If he is burnt out, it's not a surprise. It really isn't a surprise. The surprise is that he's stayed this long. The thing to be grateful for is that we've had him, and we've had him for this long. And he's delivered a European Cup and a Premier League title, one that we hadn't had in 30 years. He's delivered multiple cups. He may well deliver us a second league title, 2 more domestic cups, and maybe, just maybe, if the football gods smile on us, he might sweep the board this year. and actually win the lot by winning the Europa League. But as Guy said, look, if we finish second and we win 2 cups or we win 3 cups, or even if we just win the Europa League, it's still a great season. It's still a reason to go out on a high. And I don't feel like we should all be worried about the future, because to throw this back to you, Karl, I don't think this is like when Ferguson left United. I don't think it's like when Wenger left Arsenal, because Jurgen hasn't had the same type of power vacuum for the length of time that either of them had at their clubs. And he's leaving behind a vastly superior squad to what they left behind. He's leaving behind a squad that probably only needs 3 or 4 additions. He's leaving behind a team littered with world-class players, which they didn't do. So if we nail the appointment and if we get the structure right, which are big ifs, but they're very possible, this doesn't need to be the end of a period of success for Liverpool. This could be Shankly leaving, Paisley taking over 2.0.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
It could be. There are overlaps between all of the things that you've just said, to be honest, the Liverpool parts, the Man United parts, even the Arsenal parts to an extent, because there you've got Wenger, who, as you said, by the end, Arsenal fans had kind of had enough of, but also he had overseen the best challenge, let's say, without being the most dominant winner, which is kind of an overlap to Klopp against Guardiola, obviously, for different reasons, but still similarities there. To my mind at the minute, especially with Schmadtke, like you say, just getting the confirmation that he's departing right before we come on, the most important thing now is like from basically the 1st of February to, let's say, the end of April, maybe into May, a little bit at the absolute latest, Liverpool need to get in place the sporting director. Because to get the rest of the structure right and to get the rest of the appointments right, somebody very, 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 very good in footballing terms needs to be at this club. Now, we didn't get it right last year with the sporting director approach. I mean, how much blame or success you want to accredit to Schmadtke is kind of irrelevant in this case, because, you know, we got players with release clauses. We got players who we kind of identified beforehand anyway, for the most part. But in terms of short term and planning and all the rest of it, none of that is sustainable for Liverpool in terms of what we want to do. But the sporting director can impact on who gets selected as head coach, the structure which goes around the head coach, and obviously the recruitment which happens in summer. So I think it's imperative that they would have been speaking to people already. You know, Schmadtke's only been on what seems like it's now a succession of short-term deals over the past, what will be coming up for most of a year. I would like to think that they've been speaking to people in the background anyway and seeing who they can get in the summer or before the summer. So if we are able to appoint somebody new in that position first, sometime around, let's say, March, April, May, that would be ideal. Even if we know who we want for head coach, they should still be able to be on board and begin the planning with them. Even if that head coach person is not announced until the end of the season, if there are certain circumstances around them. I'll use Alonso as the example because obviously he's the biggest name right at the minute. It's feasible Alonso doesn't want anything announced if he is the person, because he's in a title challenge, because he's in the first really big season with Leverkusen, and because Liverpool and Leverkusen could play each other for one of the other trophies. So it's absolutely feasible that everything has to be kept quiet. on that front for a while. Even if it's not Alonso, it could be someone else in a similar situation elsewhere. But I do.
The other one that comes to mind is the other name that comes to mind is Ruben Amorim, who's also in a title challenge at Sporting. Those are the two names. Like, there's others out there. You mentioned before we went live, Julian Nagelsmann. I'm sure he'll get some consideration. But for me, the two that just stand out, the two that jump out to me are Xabi Alonso and Ruben Amorim. And I don't think you go beyond them until both of them say no. I think they're who you focus in on. But like you said, the sporting director needs to be the first priority. And Karl, it's very obvious to me who the top candidate should be. It should be Michael Edwards. This is an opportunity to go and get the best sporting director, I believe, in world football, who is currently available. He is not tied to any club. So you don't have to worry about gardening leave. You don't have to worry about buying him out of a contract. He is there. You know you have a good working relationship with him. And now there's no reason for him not to come back. So go and get him. Go and get Ian Graham. If Julian Ward is willing to come back as well, go and get that group back together. It's a proven structure that we know works. They have a method of working that we know leads to success. You go and get them, and then you have them go and get the manager. And if it's them with Alonso or Amorim, I mean, that to me is an outstanding result for us, given the circumstances.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be the whole group, you know. Plenty of them might want to do things differently or do their own things or whatever it is, and that's fine. Even Michael Edwards, like, if you get him back in a similar sort of role, but he might want to make alterations to the structure, which he thinks is an improvement, which he was hoping to do elsewhere.
I think he would want the Mike Gordon role. I think he would want the Mike Gordon role, which means he gets that job, sporting CEO, and then maybe Julian Ward is the sporting director underneath Edwards. That, to me, is what makes sense. And I personally can't see beyond that as plan A. Now, there's other great candidates out there, but that, to me, just makes so much sense as plan A. Go and get them. They're not working now, so you've got nothing holding you back from going full bore at them. Throw whatever they want at it. Whatever they want. Get them, and then focus on the manager. But it may well be that they've had 2 months on this, Karl. It may well be that they already have people agreed. They might already have an agreement with a sporting director. They might already have an agreement with a manager. Now, I'm sure Xabi Alonso, who's doing a press conference in the next hour or so, I'm sure he's going to be asked about it straight away. It'll probably be one of the first questions he's going to be asked. And that'll probably annoy him, because the focus for him should be on Bayer Leverkusen. The focus for Leverkusen media should be on the team and how successful they've been this year. But unfortunately, he's going to be asked about it. And I would imagine he'll just bat the question away. But he has to be one of those under strong consideration, surely.
Yeah. If we're talking strong consideration, I say he's one of a very, very small group. There will be other managers who you always consider, and there will be a big, long list of managers who you keep an eye on. But for strong consideration at this point, it's a small list. I should have probably also clarified when you mentioned that we spoke about Nagelsmann earlier. I don't think any of us actually want him. I haven't actually spoken to a single Liverpool fan.
No.
In fact, I would say even a single fan of any of the big four in England who actually want Julian Nagelsmann at this point. And nobody has any doubts over his tactical acumen, let's say, but there are other question marks over him. Man management maybe is one of them, and my personal opinion from watching him in domestic football is a tendency to muddle too much, to make things much more complicated for certain players than it needs to be. And until that is not really a part of his game, it's not really a management trait I am hugely appreciative of, just because. Not in every single player, not in every single tactical system, but there's just too much overall of it in the team for my liking from him.
I think Alonso he confuses himself by trying to be clever.
I mean, maybe. He certainly confuses the players, though. I don't think there's any doubt of that, especially from like half to half. we've seen evidence of it lots and lots of time, to be perfectly honest, and there have been enough comments from players as well suggesting that it's a similar sort of line. It's a bit frustrating to deal with, as if that's your primary job, basically. But yeah, in terms of strong candidates, Amorim and Alonso as the younger options in that list have to be the biggest of the considerations. And beyond that, you are looking at a different profile of manager. You're looking at basically a different Jurgen Klopp, but not tactically, not stylistically, not personality-wise, but in terms of manager arc, you are looking at a different Jurgen Klopp. Whether that is you want, just for the names, Allegri or Simeone or whoever it is, it's Klopp standing, Klopp age, Klopp circle of success kind of player, coach who you go and get. Those are your only two options, I think. There are not enough genuinely outstanding young managers out there, younger, let's say, that you can have your pick of 5, 6 of the most absolutely talented, already looking at success kind of coaches. There's only a few. And certainly who are doing it of a consistency level and a playing style level, which would be probably accepted at this point by top Premier League clubs. De Zerbi, I think, is probably going to be the Premier League name, let's say, who is on the list. Don't really see too many others of, obviously there are people talking about Graham Potter and blah, blah, blah. None of those have any...
Graham Potter would be awful.
No,
Graham Potter would be a horrible choice.
Yes, but just aside from being a horrible choice, I just don't think managerial-wise any of the other Premier League linked names have any relevance to this Liverpool job. They just don't.
No, there's 5 names. The top 2, I think, should be Alonso and Amorim. They're the 2 I'd look at right now and say, you go and you get one of them. You go to Alonso, you pick whichever one you prefer. You go to him, you ask him. If he says no, you go to the other. After that, it does get a little bit murky. You mentioned De Zerbi. I think he'd absolutely be on the list. Now, there are question marks over whether his football is sustainable. I do think his football would look much better with Van Dijk and Konate as the centre-backs, as opposed to Lewis Dunk and Jean-Paul Van Hecke. So there's that. That would immediately help him in what he wants to do. And we have many of the other pieces that he likes to have in his team. You mentioned the older names. You mentioned Simeone. Allegri for me just would be a no. I know he's having a good season with Juventus, but by God, the football is dull. Allegri would be a firm no for me. Simeone, I love. I would take Diego Simeone in a heartbeat. If I could pick a manager, it would be him. The issue with him is I don't know how well he would work in what we're talking about in terms of a structure, because he at Atleti has sort of done what Jurgen has done and kind of pushed away a lot of the structure and consolidated his own power base. And I actually just don't think he will leave Atletico Madrid. I also don't think he'd want to come to England because he doesn't speak English fluently. And he's had some issues with the English media in the past. And he hasn't been overly complimentary when he's talked about you and your pals. The other 2 names that just come to mind, and it's largely because they're out of work, but they're proven winners. One is Antonio Conte, who the last time we saw was failing at Spurs. And you were very uncomplimentary about the job he was doing there, despite securing top 4 in his first season. He's obviously won a league title in England with Chelsea, and that still does carry a lot of weight. He won 3 titles with Juve. They carry weight. His European performance, though, would count against him. I wouldn't imagine FSG want to sign up for the Antonio Conte experience because he is known to be difficult to work with. The other one is Hansi Flick, who obviously did not do well as manager of the German national team, but did an exceptional job with Bayern in winning a treble. Outside of that group, I just don't know where you'd look. I don't see how you would look beyond Alonso, Amorim, and if you get a no from both of them, then you go to Brighton for De Zerbi. I think the older guys, I think Flick would be interesting. Conte would be too much trouble. I don't think Simeone would take it. I think it's a short list of 3 because I don't think we're missing anybody here. You look through the managers in England, and like you said, De Zerbi really is the only one. Like, even if you look at our rivals, like obviously Pep is a non-starter. You wouldn't want Mikel Arteta. You wouldn't want Eric Ten Hag. I would love Ange, but he's not going to leave Spurs after a year. So there isn't another manager in the You're certainly not going to want Eddie Howe. There isn't another manager in the Premier League other than De Zerbi who realistically you could see as a fit. You go up and down through the French league. I mean, you're not going to take any of them. You're not going to take anyone from Italy right now, I don't think. Simone Inzaghi, I'm sure his name will pop up at some point. I wouldn't be a massive fan of what he's become as a manager. I quite liked him at Lazio. I haven't enjoyed his Inter Milan spell. Again, you look at Spain, maybe there's one or two. The only other one in the Premier League whose name I'd throw out, but it would be a very quick, yeah, he's doing a really good job, he's very promising, but he's not ready, would be Andoni Iraola. Aside from him, like, I think we have kind of zeroed in on the 3 that should be the top 3. Xabi, Amorim, and De Zerbi. Guy, is there anyone else you'd be looking at, or what would you suggest in terms of those 3 managers? Would you have an order of preference on them?
I'm not a big watcher of foreign football because I just need Burnley and Luton in my life. But there's certain things that put me off De Zerbi, namely playing James Milner after Milana in 2024, which kind of scares me. But I suppose that's probably a Klopp quality because he did it in 2023 with one of them, so there's similarities there. What kind of puts me off Xabi, and it's nothing to do with his managerial thing, is he will be linked with Real Madrid every single day he is our manager, and it will get annoying very quickly. And inevitably, he will join Real Madrid. That'd kind of scare me a bit. I don't know enough about Ruben Amorim. Obviously, I know both of you have championed him for years now. If you just look at the cold, hard job he's done, there is similarities there. I mean, Sporting is the 3rd biggest team in Portugal. We're obviously the second biggest team, but we are fighting an uphill battle against Man City, maybe even Arsenal, who've spent £1 bajillion in the last 2 years, 3 years. So there is somewhat similarities there. So I feel like I'd be all right with any of the 3 of them, but the doubts about De Zerbi, I'd love to see the style of play with the better players, as you mentioned, like Ibu and Van Dijk. I don't know what the hell. Like, imagine Trent as the Gross role, where he just plays any role. That'd very much be intriguing. Other names, it wouldn't surprise me if like Thomas Frank gets linked because the job he's done at Brentford is really good, but it's too big a jump, I think. But it wouldn't surprise me if his name does get a mention.
He's also got that Klopp sort of, he gets incredible buy-in from his players. Yeah. So he does have that kind of similar type of personality to reach his players. But like you said, it's an enormous jump. Like, it's a massive jump from any of these clubs. Like, absolutely. Sporting is a big club, but they're not Liverpool. Leverkusen, what are they realistically? The 5th or 6th biggest club in Germany. Obviously, from Brighton to Liverpool will be a huge jump as well. But at least with De Zerbi, he has managed at Shakhtar, which is the 2nd kind of biggest club in Ukraine. So he's dealt with big expectation there. Not on the same level, but there's that. Whichever one of them, there's no guaranteed. Like, when we got Jurgen, you knew it was going to work. You knew Jurgen Klopp was going to work. Of the 3 we're talking about, I would be most confident in Ruben Amorim working. Because I've seen it work, because I've seen him win a league title, and I see him now going for a 2nd league title. Alonso hasn't won anything yet. And Alonso has only actually been a senior manager for a year and a bit at this point. Like, he was the B team manager at Sociedad. He's only been at Leverkusen just over a year. It's a very small sample size you're working with. And I know Ruben Amorim, it's a small sample size as well. You're only looking at 4 years of management. But he's already won a league title, and that to me carries a lot of weight. If you can win a league title as an underdog, which is what Jurgen made his bones doing with Leverkusen, I mean, that does stand to something.
Did Amorim, what was Amorim's job before Sporting? Because didn't he do well before Sporting as well? So similarly,
he was at Braga
to Klopp.
Yeah, he was at Braga, but he was only there. He was the caretaker manager. He was the B team manager for like 4 months. And he managed 11 games, won 8, drew 1 and lost 1. Drew 2 and lost 1. Then he took the first team job. On the 23rd of December 2019, he managed 13 games. He won 10, drew 1 and lost 2. And then Sporting paid a large sum of money to buy him out of his contract at Braga. And since joining Sporting, he's managed 181 games, and they've won 131 of them with 28 draws, only 30 defeats. So, like, you're looking at someone that has a 70% win rate across 213 matches. That's not nothing. Karl, would you have a preference between the three? Is there anyone else that springs to mind that you think would be an interesting candidate, or is somebody worth consideration?
So, from my perspective, De Zerbi, I have more curiosity about him rather than a desire to see him at Liverpool, if you know what I mean. I don't think I put him in the same category. I do really, really like him, but I don't think that I quite want him at Liverpool. The one I would have been considering, at least as, we'll expect to see him involved, if not for taking another job in a particular place, is Marcelo Gallardo, because he was doing so well at River. Several title fights, Copa Libertadores finals, blah, blah, blah. But Gallardo moving to Saudi Arabia as his next choice after that kind of success was just bizarre all year round. The only other one at the minute who, the similar sort of profile or tread, if you like, is Martin De Michelis, but that's just, I have nothing to say about it whatsoever. I don't know if I've seen more than about 2 matches of his. And you just don't come straight out of River Plate and go to Liverpool as manager if it's your first couple of jobs sort of thing. That's just not a path to tread. So unless the only other thing that I can think is that Liverpool don't go for the next manager who's going to be here 6 years. That's the only thing that I can think might make it different from an Amorim Alonso. If we basically think so much change here and Klopp is so big that there's no point bringing in that kind of manager, that kind of fairly inexperienced manager who's going for the first big job. We need someone who's been at a big job, who can do 2 years, and then we can either move on or sack or whatever. It's not got to be the perfect appointment this time around. They might take that approach to it. Someone who can handle the big names, someone who can...
Guy, get an article ready on the website. Match it calls for Mourinho. I want that as the headline. Match it calls for Mourinho.
No. I was going to say, I mean, you'd kind of describe... Not Spurs Conte, but if you could get Chelsea first year Conte, it is, apart from maybe the back three, we'd probably have to buy a centre-back, but we have to buy a centre-back anyway. And obviously bring Ashley Young and all the old lads too. It does kind of, like, if we want, not the last dregs, because that's too harsh, but if we want to just succeed whilst we've got Salah, whilst we've got Van Dijk, Conte for 2 years, and then the implosion, and then we get a Zabi if he's still at Leverkusen, or an Amorim who'd probably still be at Sporting. It's probably not the maddest idea, but I don't think it's an FSG idea.
Hi everyone. This month, the channel is supporting a local charity based in Edinburgh called Steps to Hope. Steps to Hope helps support people who are experiencing homelessness and addiction. The founder of the charity, Richard Roncero, is currently doing a Sleep Rough campaign where he is sleeping rough on the streets in 8 different cities for 8 weeks. Please like, share and follow the Facebook page, and if you can, donate. Thank you.
You bring in Conte, you only actually need to sign one starter because he will rinse the absolute last bit of sweat out of Andy Robertson. So you're looking at Ibu, Virgil, and new left-footed centre-back. But you could probably get away with Joe Gomez if you really needed to. But ideally, new left-footed centre-back. Then you go Trent right wing-back, Robbo left wing-back. You go Dominic, Alexis, and Curtis as a Conte midfield three. That will work. And then you put Darwin and Mo up front. And that would work. And I think that team would go very, very close to the title. And he is a great manager. And Karl might have a point. Maybe that's what they decide to do. But I just don't think it is. I don't think they'll go that way. I think they will go younger. I think they'll want someone that is buying into a long-term picture. And I wasn't expecting Karl to throw out the name Marcelo Gallardo because, again, I don't know that we'd look at South America for a manager, given we don't look at it for players. But for me, if we were to do a global search, then there is a third name who I would put above De Zerbi, right on the same level as Ruben Amorim and Xabi Alonso, and that's Abel Ferreira of Palmeiras, who's been there since 2020, has won 2 Brazilian Serie A titles and 2 Copa Libertadores. To me, he went back-to-back in the Copa Libertadores. He's gone back-to-back in Brazilian Serie A. He, to me, is the best manager I've seen in South America in a long time. Prior to that, he did a pretty good job at PAOK Athens. Prior to that, he did a really good job with Braga. I would put him right on the level with Amorim and with Alonso. I might even put him above Alonso because he's more experienced and he's a proven winner. But he'd be the other one that I'd have if because Karl's right. I mean, Gallardo did an outstanding job with River Plate, and I don't for the life of me understand how every club in Europe looked at that and thought, I know we'll go a different direction, and allowed him to end up with fucking Al Ittihad. How has that happened? Like, I know he only signed a 1.5-year contract. It's probably very easy to get him out of that. But if we're looking outside of Europe and we're looking outside the main leagues, for me, Abel Ferreira, the guy has done an incredible job with Palmeiras. And he has developed some of the most exciting young players in the world. We're going to see Endrick come to Europe in a couple of years. He has been, the way he has developed under Ferreira, you look at Danilo at Forest, you look at Estevao and how he's developing. Like, this guy has done a phenomenal job with Palmeiras. And I think he, if we are going to cast a wider net, absolutely deserves strong consideration because he's done a phenomenal job there. And that's a big club, but not the biggest club in Brazil. He's had to work under budget restrictions, which he'll have at Liverpool. He's had his best players sold out from under him on multiple occasions. And yet he just continues to win. Copa, league title. That, as a 4-year run, just doesn't happen in South American football. So I'm going to throw his name in the ring.
The only deciding factor here, I think, is going to have to be if we can do a player plus manager deal. So do you want Alonso and Wirtz? Or do you want Amorim? We'll have to choose carefully here.
Diamande would probably be the obvious one, the centre-back.
It's either Diamande or Bode, isn't it?
Conte and Bastoni. Let's go.
I assume you don't want Seb Coates back anyway.
No.
Ignacio is the only other one.
Yeah. And then if you're looking at Ferreira, the player to bring in then would be Estevao.
Deserving different steel.
De Zerbi, Jason Steele, Adam Lallana, Danny Welbeck, and James Milner. Bring the lads in.
If he brings in Ciso, I'll take it, to be fair.
De Zerbi and Enciso or De Zerbi and Estupinan. I mean, I would go if it's player plus manager plus player. I would probably go Ferreira and Esteve. As much as I love Florian Wirtz, I just don't. I'm not sure how that works. I mean, you could go. Actually, no, I've no idea how that would work. I don't know where he would fit into what we have now. As brilliant as he is, in the way Alonso plays, which is often a 3-4-2-1, I would assume. Actually, let's have that conversation quickly then. So if it's Alonso and he wants to play the 3-4-2-1, Darwin is the 9. Mo and Dominic seem to make the most sense as the 2 behind. Then Trent, Alexis, Curtis, Robbo as a 3. So you'd want a new left wing back. And then Ibu, Virgil, and a left-footed centre-back. And he could bring Hincapié with him. So that would be good. If it's Amorim, he also plays a similar enough shape. Most often does play that 3-4-2-1. So again, it's a similar type of setup. So he could bring Inacio with him to fit on that left side. So you're looking for, again, a left wing back. Maybe his former student, Nuno Mendes, wants out of PSG. If it's De Zerbi, it's 4-2-3-1. So Trent, Ibu, Virgil, new left back, Estupinan would be ideal. I think he would want a more destructive type of midfielder next to Alexis. Then Dominic is the 10, Mo right. I think he'd want a new left winger as well. He could bring Matoma. So we'll take Estupinan and Matoma and Darwin up front. And then Ferreira tends to play 4-2-3-1 as well. So again, it's a similar type of makeup. Karl, you've pushed back against the back 3 many times. Many times. So if you want a back 4, it has to be De Zerbi or Ferreira.
Yeah, Alonso did quite a lot of back 4 in the first season there with Leverkusen.
Yeah.
Before settling on
but he didn't win anything.
No,
also back 3 and he's
three yet.
No, but he's unbeaten. He hasn't lost to the back 3. No,
I think Alonso is the manager who has the most versatility out of the 3 that we're showing so far. De Zerbi's system might be more flexible, but I think that's within the structure of his original setup. That's the playing structure is flexible, whereas I think Alonso is probably the most starting formation flexible, let's say. And it might not be any of these 3 anyway. They just do feel like the initial prime candidates.
They do. I'm kind of talking myself into Abel Ferreira now. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you look beyond. I don't think you look beyond Alonso. If you're just going to focus in on Europe, you don't look beyond Alonso and Amorim. De Zerbi is your kind of your fallback option because I do think De Zerbi would take it. I think any of them would take it personally. I don't see a situation in which Amorim turns it down. The only situation I think Alonso would turn it down is he might look at it and say, I'd rather get some more time under myself. I'd rather have a bit more experience before I jump to that level of club. But I don't see Xabi as the type that's ever lacked in confidence in his own ability. There's no bad choice here. If it's De Zerbi, there's definitely wrinkles that need to be ironed out. But we will play the best football any of us have ever seen a Liverpool team play. He plays, I think, the best brand of football in Europe. Alonso, obviously, there's so many positives to it. But like I said, you could be on the clock that he will constantly be linked to Real. And at some point, I would imagine he would want to go and manage Real. Amorim, I could see staying long term. You know, he's the one I could see bedding in for 8, 9, 10 years and seeing it as his destination. He's the youngest of them as well. He's only 38 years of age, Ruben Amorim. Alonso's 42. De Zerbi is 44 and Abel Ferreira is 45. You could get Amorim for 7 years and he'd still be the same age as Abel Ferreira is now. There's no wrong answer here. There are other wrong answers. Like Julian Nagelsmann, I think, will be the wrong answer. I think if we land on him, that's problematic. I think there's an immaturity to his management style. I don't think he's ready for a big club. I think his biggest mistake was leaving Leipzig the way he did. I think had he stayed there and continued to develop and continued to work, I think he'd have been much better off. I kind of feel like he's damaged goods now. I haven't been hugely impressed by what he's done with the national team. I don't think anybody was impressed by what he did with Bayern. I've sort of got a level of 4. Right. Last thoughts on this. Karl, last words.
Liverpool 3, Norwich 0.
Yeah, it seems a good place to end. Guy, last thoughts.
It's probably the wrong time, but Klopp did make me fall back in love with football because we were shit for a very long time before him. Like 2009 to 2015 was a fucking dark time as a Liverpool fan.
So we had one good season.
You. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. We had one good season that time. So, yeah, thank you, Jurgen. That is the overriding thing here, isn't it? Be thankful that it's happened. Be thankful that we had this guy for 9 years. If he's decided it's time for him to move on, you have to respect that decision. We've had him for much longer than any of us expected to. He's given us longer than he gave Mainz, which was his club, than he gave Dortmund, where he is still to this day a god among men. He's given us more years. So, yeah, thanks, Jurgen. Right, folks, we will leave it there. We will have lots and lots of reaction, lots and lots of commentary on this today, tomorrow, over the coming weeks. I'd imagine this is the first of a series of big breaking news for Liverpool Football Club over the next few weeks. I'd be surprised if by the end of February we don't have a sporting director, if not in place, appointed to join in the summer. It may not become public, but I'd imagine people will know. And I'd imagine they'll have kind of zeroed in on who they want as manager as well. So, Karl, back to work. I'm sure you've got a hectic day ahead. Guy, I know you've got a hectic day ahead. And we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.